I'm going to do a deep study with you of the last 100 years of philosophy and thought and social theory on how what Paul prophesies in chapter 2 of Romans is ultimately being fulfilled today on the nightly news. What I want to do is I want to take the word and I want to connect it to the world. I want to take what is timeless and connect it to our times. Now, if you are a nerd, you're going to love this. I'm your blue-collar scholar buddy, okay? So we're going to go deep together. And I don't want to lose you, but I do want to stretch you. Because what happens today is we react too much and we reflect too little. That we get very emotional before we really get any sort of contemplation or consideration of where the idea that frustrated us comes from or what our response might cause. So what we're going to do, we're going to look at 100 years through the lens of judgment, justice, and righteousness. And I'm going to look at the prophetic fulfillment of Romans 2 today. Number one, first phase. It'll be 4 phases. The first phase is called critical theory. You're going to hear about this a lot in the news. It's actually now an election hot button. Recently, certain departments in the government were forbidden from teaching critical theory. It's actually quite controversial. And critical theory is, in its essence, if I could summarize it, the human pursuit of heaven without God. How could we have justice? How could we have equality? How could we have peace? How could we have unity? How could we have health without God? The truth is, there is no heaven without God. So critical theory stands in opposition to something called traditional theory. I'm looking into the social sciences of philosophy. Traditional theory is how you build something. Critical theory is criticizing that which is built. You see the difference? Which one's easier? Building something or criticizing something that was built? Criticizing is way easier. I'll give you an example. You're watching sports. There are the athletes on the field. Let's say it's Cardinal football or Cowboy football. So the teams are on the field, way up in the booth at a very safe distance from all the collisions, are heavy-set, middle-aged men who are commenting on the work of the professional athletes. And they will critique. It is much easier to say, you should have run faster, than to run faster. It's much easier to say, should have held on to the football, than hold on to the chili dog while you're criticizing the person who can't hold on to the football. The reason they dropped the football, they got hit by a grown man who's the size of a car, and you spilled the chili, and no one hit you. You just failed. Okay? Right? True? Okay? This is why it's easy to go on Yelp and write a review. It's really hard to run a restaurant. Right? How do I know? One time, I tried to cook. It's tough. It's really tough. I don't cook now for health and safety reasons. And I don't criticize cooks because I have no business criticizing them. But it's hard to buy a building, to get a bank loan, to build out a kitchen, to hire a staff, to put together a menu, to train those in guest services and those in cooking. And then it's hard to order all the ingredients and to prepare the meals and deliver the meals. And it's really easy to sit at the table on your phone and go on Yelp and say, wasn't hot enough. Well, hell's hotter. You know, I mean, if this isn't warm enough for you, there are options. You know, at the end of the day, it's easy to criticize. Amen? It just is. In our day of Yelp and reviews and likes and unlikes, we're just a whole culture of judgers. My favorite, I'm going to unburden myself a little bit. I think it's fascinating that we have reviews for churches. I wish they had another one where the pastors got to review their people. I wish. Hey, if we're going to judge, let's just all do it. Yeah. I didn't feel like they were very filled with the Spirit. Well, you weren't, because the first 2 fruit are love and joy. So there you go, all right? By the way, I'm going to write a review on Tony. Tony never tithed. He was always late. His phone went off in the service, and he was a little flatulent, which made it uncomfortable during the service. Send. Okay? The point is, we like to judge. We don't like to be. Aren't you glad there are people on Yelp right now reviewing you? Your mom's at home going, can we do that? No, Mom. Okay, here's the point. Traditional theory is how to build something. Critical theory is how to critique that which has been built. And it's a lot easier to criticize than it is to build. It's easier when you're single to tell somebody how to have a good marriage. It's easier when you have no kids to walk up to parents whose kids are having a nervous breakdown in the Walmart and give them parenting advice. And what we have now is this critical theory. It's basically two parts. It's what I'll call deconstruction and reconstruction, meaning we need to tear down marriage, gender, sexuality, law, politics, capitalism, academics. Tear it down because we see problems. Now, there is a partial truth in this. Because we are imperfect people, everything we build is to varying degrees imperfect. Imperfect. And so you could tear it down and then have another imperfect person build something else, but the point is that too will be imperfect. So then the next generation of judges comes along and tears that down and then rebuilds something else, but because they're imperfect, they build something imperfect. We now call this America. Tear down, rebuild, don't like it. Tear down, rebuild, don't like it. Tear down, rebuild, don't like it. Marriage, family, gender, law, sexuality, politics, economics, and education. It's deconstruction, reconstruction. The reconstruction is this longing for heaven, for utopia, that things would get better, that the world would be as it should be. But it is heaven without God. One atheistic scholar says that this philosophy is like a virus that mutates in every generation. And I thought that was curious because they wrote this before our current circumstances. And it may mean that part of our frustration today and our fear today, and even to some degree our fury today, is that we have both a physical and a cultural virus that are attacking life and health. That we may have simultaneously a physical and a cultural virus. Now, that being said, all of this started, let me work historically. 1914 through 1918, in Germany, there was World War I. World War I left the German people economically and psychologically devastated. Devastated. 3 million Germans died. It's a lot of people. 15% of the men died. That means husbands, fathers, brothers. That means the next generation of providers and protectors. As a result, they were publicly shamed. At the Treaty of Versailles, they were blamed for the war, and they were forced to pay reparations. The equivalent today was around $260 billion. It took them 92 years to pay off. The result is a culture of people who feel defeated. They feel robbed. They feel oppressed. They feel that their power and wealth has been taken from them. They are hurting and they feel like victims. As a result, the philosophy that comes out of that time has a particular emotional appeal to those who are feeling similar. The system is broken. I have been oppressed. My rights have been taken. My money has been stolen. My shame has been increased and my dignity has been decreased. What happens then is in 1923 is founded the Institute for Social Research. It is the first funded Marxist think tank. It is pursuing utopia without God. It's anti-capitalism and anti-democracy. It is run by Jewish scholars who are Jewish by their birth, but they are not walking in relationship with God. They are culturally Jewish. And what they're seeking to do is to create their concept of deconstruction and reconstruction. What is wrong with gender, marriage, family, education, capitalism, democracy? And if we were to deconstruct that, how could we reconstruct that into a utopian society, heaven on earth without God? They were considered countercultural radicals. Well, then in 1933, Adolf Hitler becomes chancellor in Germany. And this is also known as the Frankfurt School and/or critical theory. That was their ideology. They were moved out of the country. They were displaced by the Nazis, first to Geneva, then to Paris, and then Columbia University in New York City. It now lands in America, and it's upstream in a university. You need to know this. Universities are upstream, culture is downstream. The culture flows down from universities. If you want to know what the culture will look like in the next generation, go and see what the university looks like in this generation. The lawyers are going to graduate and come from the university. The culture makers and culture gatekeepers are going to come from the university. The politicians and the lawmakers are going to come from the university. So what happens is they envision the best way to cause change in the world would be to get to America and to get into the university to create a curriculum that could then get into other universities that eventually would allow their theory to change the future of culture. It was intentional. It was intentional. And if you want to know what this culture of critical theory at its maturation looks like, go to a university campus. What you will see is an erosion of civil liberties and civil rights. You will see an increase of politically correct rules and laws. You will see massive government dependence. You will see people who are in real poverty and also massive debt. They are, with their choices of lifestyle, of alcohol and sexuality, rebellious and self-destructive. They're very activistic and self-righteous. They think they got it all figured out. If you don't agree with me, when we're done, just go to a university and ask anyone anything, and you'll see that it's true. Thanks for joining me. My name is Pastor Mark. I've been teaching the Bible for more than 3 decades and head on constant collisions with woke culture. And I would love to get you more Bible teaching. 2 things you can do. Go ahead and watch the sermon in total and also subscribe to the channel. And I'll just keep sending you Bible teaching and we'll have a lot more fun together.